At least no weird shading is happening with my hair now. Oh, it's gonna happen. Okay, as you probably seen by the title of this video, today we're going to talk about fanfiction and all its many wonders and controversies. And this is just because I thought about making a video about my writing, but I figured out that that would be kind of boring because I am a pretty new, small, practically microscopic booktube channel. So therefore I'm going to make a little educational video on fanfiction and then also add about my own writing in terms of fanfiction and things I have published on the internet. So if you're kind of like queasy, like you don't know what fanfiction is, the official definition of fanfiction is fiction written by a fan of or including characters from a special piece of media, from other books, TV series, or movies or comics, stuff like that. This has kind of become a social phenomenon on the internet, and like the thing with fanfiction, it's that it's just not one genre. There are like 100 of genres blended together. So okay, we're just gonna go close my door because I'm getting like terrified right now. Living in a relatively dark house with anxiety is not very fun. So you can't kind of say that all fanfiction is sci-fi or fantasy because like there's so much different types, and how to find different types I will tell you about later when we get to me explaining different sites and pages and fanfiction forums you should look for. So something I see a lot is that fanfiction is very easily dismissed as something very unserious. What I mean by this is that people like immediately expect fanfiction to be lower quality and just porn. Because when you look at fanfiction, the stories that are most talked about and get most publicity most of the time are the smut fictions. So you kind of get this view that a lot of fanfiction is smut, but that's not necessarily the case. The thing is that fanfiction writers and fanfiction in itself is very easy to shit on. Not criticize properly, just shit on. One thing I often see is that I was looking up definitions of fanfiction on different sites, and a lot of them had the view of that the writers who write fanfiction are often amateur writers. They are writers who can't get traditionally published, so therefore they just turn to fanfiction. I don't think I have to explain to you why this is a very classist and kind of hypocritical view of fanfiction in itself, because like personally I have read a lot of fanfiction that is better than traditionally published books. I don't know what to think when people say that fanfictions aren't, you know, good or they're just amateur works, because for example I've fallen a bit into the Batman hole on fanfiction sites, and I must say that a lot of the fanfiction written there is better than the written work that gets published in the comics. And also just really beautiful pieces of fiction can be found on these sites that are truly magical. Also another thing that I want to mention is of course fanfiction's history. Because the view that fanfiction is trashy mainly comes from the fact that published authors and also big companies kind of did something a little bit illegal to make themselves feel better. So if you know something about fanfiction history, you know that Star Trek was the first fandom that ever got proper fanfiction. And one of the major things included in these fanfictions were a slash pairing between two male characters on this show. And of course the company that produced this show, I can't remember it right now and I honestly can't be bothered to check, did not like that their characters were associated with the LGBT community. So therefore they tried to sue the fanfiction authors. So therefore they tried to sue the fanfiction authors based on copyright infringement so that their characters wouldn't be presented in such a way. I don't need to explain to you why this is fucking disgusting. So there you kind of get the view that fanfiction is dirty because a lot of women were writing slash fanfiction, which is a type of fanfiction that includes two male characters being in a relationship. Another case that includes lawsuits is of course the infamous Anne Rice situation. Now, Anne Rice was an author of a popular vampire series, and a lot of fanfictions were being passed around of that series, but every fanfiction that did not live up to her moral standard of how the series should be treated, they were sued and threatened to take the fanfictions down or, you know, get a proper lawsuit. Now, this is kind of illegal because fanfictions don't bring any income. You don't get any profit from it, so therefore they aren't infringing on copyright law. So therefore all these people just used fancy words to try and scare the writers to just put down their fanfictions, basically. A very recent drama, though, was the entire drama around the Hugo Awards. If you do not know, the Hugo Awards are kind of an award for sci-fi works and stuff like that, and a fanfiction site called Archive of Our Own was nominated for Best Infrastructure, I think. So of course the writers, the authors that use this site to publish their work and fanfiction kind of started this joke that they were Hugo Awards nominees and eventually winners because Archive of Our Own won that nomination. One of the leaders on the board of this Hugo Award, just so I will make it clear, they had no say in who got nominated and who won. That was vote dominated, I think. They didn't like the fact that people went around saying they were Hugo Awards winner because only proper fiction should be labeled as proper Hugo Award winning. We were kind of destroying the image of the Hugo Award and the properness of the Hugo Award by saying that all our works of fiction were Hugo Award winning. I don't think I need to tell you that this was not very well taken by the fandoms that were writing on this site, because this again just comes back to the idea that fanfiction is less worth just because it's not published work. And even when I complained to this about my mother, she was like, oh well, I understand that they don't, you know, want published work to be on the same line as fanfiction, and I wonder, why do we have this fucking classist attitude towards fanfiction? Even myself, I've written a fanfiction with so many words that it holds for a 300-page book. Like, I worked on it like last year. And it may not be good, it may need some like editing. It definitely needs some editing because a lot of the chapters in the middle there were a bit slow going. But still, it has a requirement for being a published work. It is long enough to be a published work, and it had not enough fan engagement to be a published work. And I'm not putting my own work up in a level of published work because I know that my writing needs a lot of, you know, training and work to get on a publisher level. But holy fuck, like, I read a lot of trash books that are just, I wonder why are they getting published. So one thing I noticed is that it's a lot of people that are over the age of 30 or like are in the older generation that think so and haven't been engaged with the fan community. So therefore I think it's mostly an attitude of, oh, it was better back in the days. You know, that kind of old attitude that published works are better because they're published and you can have physical format, while this one is evil because it was created from the internet. And we used a lot of time here, oh my god. So therefore you can kind of understand the oppressive history of fanfiction. This is where the various platforms come into play, and the importance of one specific platform that has risen in the recent years. and the kind of fuckery of others, but that we'll go to later because I'm going through some sites later. Like, I've written down some notes and I've gotten pretty artistic in them, to say the least, because I think that fanfiction brings fiction to its limits. What I mean by that is that there are things in books, published works, that may not have a chance to get explored because the author didn't have time. There were restrictions on how many words you can have, and also just they didn't feel like including it. But with fanfiction, fans themselves can explore these things and things that are, you know, widely conceived as missing from these works of fiction, and kind of write them in a way and take a fan view of what would have been the proper approach. Now, a lot of like reactions to this can be that, oh, you think you're writing better than the author. How can you think that? But I would say that it's a very small demographic that thinks this. Sorry, JMS fandom. And yes, of course, it's very fucking disrespectful when you do that. Like, you should always have respect for the author and their original work. But I feel like a lot of fanfiction writers have that respect for the original work, and they also approach changing that work of fiction respectfully. So I don't think you need to be worried about this kind of attitude in the fanfiction community. Okay, then we've gone through all I have about fanfiction in itself. So now we're going to go over to some of the sites. I have just 2 written down because these are 2 of the most frequented sites in the fanfiction community. But I also want to mention that Wattpad is very big in the fanfiction community, but also in original works. And also LiveJournal and Tumblr have a lot of, you know, fiction. Wow, that was really eloquent, Ingrid, really. We're of course going to start with the well-known fanfiction.net. Now, this is kind of the site that you start on when you first search for fanfiction, because of course its name is fanfiction.net, so you find that one first. What I want to say is that if you're not very sensitive to content warnings, you can use it, and I think it's a very good introduction to kind of a tagging-like system and also just searching for fanfiction. But I must warn you, the setup of the way you post fanfiction, the way you search for it, it's terrible. It is the worst infrastructure I have ever seen on a site. So just keep that in mind. It is usually very good to use when you're desperate to find fanfiction. If it's a rare pair and you have just found like 2-3 on other sites, you just go to fanfiction.net and find the trashiest fanfiction you can find. So this is kind of a fanfiction site that gets a lot of traction. And now we're gonna talk about the oppression of authors on fanfiction sites and the Great Purges. So a lot of fanfiction sites like fanfiction.net, Wattpad, LiveJournal, they're not very user-friendly when it comes to what content is posted on their sites. Where the editors of the site decided that any fiction that was posted that was tagged as 17 plus were going to be deleted. And now it's just not like the fucked up fiction that includes like problematic things. It's a lot of stuff. The authors got no forewarning and their work got deleted and was never returned to them. Now I'm kind of gonna segue out of this because that leads me to talk about the greatest fanfiction site and also the greatest publishing site that you have on the internet right now. And that is a site I mentioned earlier, and that is Archive of Our Own. Kind of from the name you can tell what kind of site it is. It was created by fans who were tired of other people deciding what was moral to publish. So there we kind of have the start. They didn't want to be ruled by someone else. So it's kind of said that Archive of Our Own is created by fans for fans. One of the common criticisms of Archive of Our Own that you will see is that people are complaining about why Archive of Our Own lets so many people publish fucked up shit on their website. And that is kind of the thing that many people they see just that when they think of Archive of Our Own, because Archive of Our Own doesn't censor what you post there. You can post whatever you want as long as you have the proper warnings for it tagged. And we'll get to the tagging system later because, oh my god. But this basically started from the fact that people were oppressing fanfiction because of what they thought were moral. And this is kind of a slippery slope, I feel like. Because a lot of people now are very anti-Archive of Our Own because of the fucked up shit that is posted on these forums and these tags that the archive has. But Archive of Our Own refuses to take them down because they know that their own morals and other people's morals shouldn't influence someone else's work. And if you take an example, Anne Rice and the creators of Star Trek tried to censor fanfiction because they thought that homosexuality shouldn't be associated with their own work. So that's kind of the slippery slope. Where do we put the line? Because of course you think now that, oh, you shouldn't just like ban work because it includes gay content, but still you're trying to oppress other people for writing what they want. And I'm not comparing like gay stories to fucked up shit, but that's kind of the slippery slope that I'm talking about. The fact that you feel so righteous in your cause to ban these works that this will very quickly evolve into policing all works. Now the thing with Archive of Our Own is that it's fundraised. It doesn't have any ads and it is completely funded by fans who donate to the cause. What this can do is that the money they save up is given to lawyers who can protect you in legal cases if the people who originally created the work you wrote fanfiction of decide to sue you, because you have a right to write it and publish it on Archive of Our Own. So there you can already see that this site is very dedicated to keeping fans safe from the creators. And it's kind of amazing because Archive of Our Own has a very shoestring budget. They have like a fundraiser goal and that is the bare minimum that they need. And of course a lot of fans kind of give more than they need to because they want this site to be running. But really it's kind of amazing how much they can do with just the budget that they have. And of course you can also include original works on this site. They don't discriminate. You can publish original works and tag them under original works. And here I think I'm going to put up some screenshots. I don't know how high the resolution will be, so I don't know how... We'll see when I edit it if I can put up screenshots of it. But that's kind of the main thing with Archive of Our Own, and that is the tagging system. That is so amazing. So if I can put up a screenshot here, you have to tag what fandom it is and also give a content warning. So that means that you have to warn if there is non-consensual sex or underage sex in your fanfiction. You also have to warn if there is rape and like other things, a major character death, gore, any descriptions of, you know, violent actions. You have to tag it, you have to warn people about it. And there's also a tag called Archive Warnings Do Not Apply, or creator chooses not to use warnings, and that is kind of a warning that you need to be cautious and look for other tags to kind of tell you what to expect in this fanfiction. But basically you tag the fanfiction with the main content of it. So if you have a cute fanfiction that is kind of fluffy and just sweet, you tag fluff and maybe hurt comfort and similar things so that people can search these things and find them. You also tag characters, what kind of relationship it is, if you have a relationship in it. So there's male, male, female, male, and female, female, and also general, which means that it has no kind of, you know, romantic relationship. You also have two different types of relationships. So you have the and relationships and the slash relationships. Relationships are the romantic ones, and relationships are the ones that include kind of like friendship love. And the great thing about Archive of Our Own is that I have recently added a feature called Exclude. So if you're not comfortable with getting suggested works that include rape, you can put Exclude Rape and you will not get suggested fanfictions that involve this. So this tagging system is one of the greatest trigger warnings that you can have on the internet, really. It is an amazing experience. And one more thing that I want to say is that you probably should get a user if you want to read fanfiction. It makes it easier to comment, leave likes, which are called kudos on Archive of Our Own, and also lets you bookmark and subscribe to fanfictions. The thing is that you have to ask for an invite to get a user, and the thing is this kind of is going a bit slow at the time. It did at least like the last half year, because Archive of Our Own has kind of opened its arms to Chinese users because of Chinese censorship laws. So a lot of Chinese users are requesting invitations, and it kind of takes up the servers, and you also have to expect a lot of Chinese fanfiction not being tagged correctly or tagged as with English language or things like that, because they are simply getting used to the system. Just so you're aware. So now, I said that this started with me wanting to talk about my own writing, and now we're gonna do that. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. I will leave the link down in the description also, but my user on Archive of Our Own is called Yesen, and this is where I publish all of my works. So I started publishing works in 2016, which means that I was 15 at the time when I started publishing them. And you can kind of see that in the language that I use in the fanfictions. I will also put up screenshots if I have the chance. I have about 12 works on my site, or maybe 13. The thing is, I'm kind of on the edge of uploading a fanfiction, but we'll see if I publish it before this video comes out. So you'll just have to bear with me. So I'm just gonna kind of go through my fanfictions. Just give you a little run through. What I want to be displaying here are the real people fanfictions. If you do not know what that is fanfiction that includes real people, and the thing is, I've kind of become uncomfortable with writing that kind of fanfiction. I don't like writing that kind of fanfiction anymore. So I'm just gonna quickly go through the fanfictions that I have posted in kind of like real people fanfiction. The first one is of horse soups and tractor cannons. It is a crack fic. It is very much not serious, so you can kind of ignore that. It's meant to be trashy. You have Airport Adventures, which is about EXO. The last one was about BTS. And it's just fluff. It's pure fluff. It's 900 words of fluff. And then we have my most popular fanfiction of all time, and that is The Smell of Blood and Vanilla, and that is also a BTS fanfiction. This one is tagged as I chose not to use archive warnings, so be warned if you want to go look at that. It is kind of a gangster alternative universe, and it's really trash. It's so bad. But it's my most popular one, so I can't delete it. And I also won't edit it because it makes me uncomfortable now. Then we have Perfect, and that is also about BTS. And it's kind of, it's a high school alternative universe. It's about 9,000 words, about 3,000 words in each chapter. There are 3 chapters. And it's pretty trash, that one as well. You can kind of see the kind of relationship I have to my own stories. So the first fanfiction we're going to talk about is the Big Brother Instinct. This is a fanfiction of The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare, and it kind of, there's an incident in the original book between two of the characters, and this is me kind of reimagining it because I thought it was kind of, you know, unbelievable that this incident had this outcome. And I also felt like the incident was demonizing some characters that I think didn't deserve to be demonized in this situation. There are like basically no tags on it, and that is because a lot of people who frequent this tag just frequent characters because it's a really small fandom, not a lot of works there. Then we have a series of 4 fanfictions called Two Idiots in Love. And this is related to Kuroko's Basketball, the anime. And it's about 2 characters and kind of their journey through life. So the first one is about them getting together and having a really cute crush on each other. The second one is the first smut I ever wrote, and that is the first time that I have sex. I think it's the first time. The third one is about a fight that I have, and also a little bit angst between one of the main characters and his family, and the fourth one is them getting married. This one I'm also kind of proud of. It took a lot of work. It's a really nice series, you know. The writing may be a little bit shit at times, but I can handle it. I reread it a lot of times, and it's one of my favorites. The next one is Darkness and Blue Waves, and this is in the Haikyuu fandom, another anime. And this one is basically, it's an alternative universe where a volleyball team from this anime are a mermaid flock. And one of them gets kidnapped, and it's kind of the flock dealing with that and trying to get him back. This one is really bad. Like, I'm sorry, but it's really bad. It kind of has this chapter to chapter kind of vibe to it. Like, each chapter there happens something and it doesn't affect the next chapter at all. And yeah, it's kind of trash that way. But personally, like, give it a try. It should be okay. It should be pretty good. Then you have one of my most recent one. This belongs to the A Court of Thorns and Roses fandom, and that is the fanfiction The Poison You Call Love. And this one is kind of exploring the broken relationship between 2 of the characters, Lucian and Tamlin. Like, I don't have a lot to say about it. It's just, it's good fun, it's good fiction, it's fun. And this one was basically because I felt like Tamlin's storyline with Lucian wasn't quite finished in the original material. Then we have my last work, which is The Warrior and His Shadow, which also belongs to the Sarah J. Maas A Court of Thorns and Roses fandom. This work took me a lot of time. It has 28 chapters. It was originally supposed to have 8, so you can kind of tell that this is the work that has 75,000 words. This one is definitely my longest one and the one I'm most proud of. You definitely need to read Aquawar though to actually understand what the hell is happening. Because I kind of like drop a lot of things. Yeah, I would actually like a lot more attention on it because I worked so long and so hard on it. So just go give it a try if you've read the Akatar series. And then I said that one was my last one, but I have a work in the works, you could say, and that is a original work that I've called The Stars from Our Eyes. And this one is kind of it is a sci-fi story, but we're kind of taking a different route and making it an adoption story. It is basically about this character in a futuristic setting that is getting adopted by this military man and kind of their relationship as a father and son developing. I've also led a lot of thought into like the social system there. So therefore, like, I have 2 main religions figured out in this story, and also a lot of social standards, social attitudes, and it's been so fucking fun to write. And I think I might upload the first chapter like a week before this comes up, but I don't know because I'm kind of scared of uploading it. but we'll see how it goes. So that was my entire rant on fanfiction and its importance in fan culture, because it is very important in fan culture, and also a little bit about my own fanfictions and what sites you should frequent for fanfiction. The reason that I wanted to talk about fanfiction is that there's a lot of negative attitudes towards it, and it also gets a reputation for being trash. So I just wanted to tell you about how amazing fanfiction really can be, and like kind of the good sides of fanfiction. If you have any questions about fanfiction, because I know I left a lot of things unanswered, you can leave a comment down below. If you like what I had to say, you can leave a like and maybe subscribe if you want to see more of my face. I hope to see you on my next video, and I hope you have a lovely day. And now I don't really have anything more to say, so goodbye. Have a lovely day again.